Okay, here's part 3 of my dad's 1969 427 Corvette Stingray. So hopefully in this video we're going to start it for the first time in 27 years. Since the year I was born. She's been parked since a couple months after I was born. Dad had a family emergency. Life just got in front of him, and one thing led to another, and the car's sat here my entire life. So we're going to get it running today for the first time in 20, well, not today, but we're going to get it running in this video for the first time in 27 years, finish that list, and hopefully go cruise it around the block, holler to my parents' retirement home. Well, they're not a retirement, the house they're retiring to. Anyway, I digress. Today, first thing we're going to do, pop the hood, pour a little brake fluid in this master cylinder, because it is bone dry, and we've got this fancy .5 silicone brake fluid that's got a special formula that doesn't destroy these old seals. We're going to fill it up, let that sit for a couple days, week, however, whenever I get back to it. Hopefully it'll percolate down into the brake lines. Hopefully there's still goo in the brake lines, and I should be able to bleed this without any problem, but we're going to try and bleed the master in the car, and hope we have enough brakes that we can drive it around the block. We ain't going to go any significant distance until we, properly bleed them. So let me get to that. All right, we filled up both cylinders with this expensive, fancy purple brake fluid, and I think I might go pump the brakes a couple of times, see if it, sucks anything down in there. Then we're gonna let it sit for a while and just try and fill it up, because the Mercedes I had a bone dry master cylinder. I poured fluid in it, and it just self-bled because everything had evaporated like up to like the actual fittings. There was still fluid in the cylinder, but it was everything on top. And so anyway, it somehow worked itself out on its own, so we're going to hope it does that. We hope there's still fluid in all the lines. And yeah, we'll see if that works or not. I'm going to go mash the pedals a little bit and see if it goes down at all. Alright, got my foot down here on the pedal. Let's see if this does anything. Oh, God. Well, we're doing something. Well, it's progress. I have no idea if anything is actually doing anything or if the calipers are seized, but we'll try and bleed that down there a little bit and see what happens, but I'll wait till Dad helps me with that. Alright, it's been another week. Plan is to get her fired up tomorrow, get her on a car trailer, bring her out to the house. I just bled the master cylinder as best I could by myself, reaching with my foot on the pedal, reaching over the top with a 9/16 open end. We got fluid coming out of either end, and just a little bit of fluid, so I'm hoping we still got something in the lines. Definitely have a power steering leak. It's lost about 6 or 7 ounces since I last checked. And if you look under there, there is a new wet spot, and all this good wetness all up on that power steering system. Have not lost a drop coolant, so that's good. I'm going to top up the brake system, and don't know if we're going to be able to bleed those or not before we get on the trailer. We shall see. Hopefully the wheels are crusty enough that we don't really need brakes. And the clutch works. That'd be nice. Alright, today's the day, and we have a list. We're going to put the battery in, do a smoke test, bump the starter, make sure it spins. Pull the spark plug, check ignition coil at the plug. If we don't have ignition, then we're SOL, and she's just going to go straight on a car trailer. Then we add gas to the tank, prime the fuel system, make sure all our fluids are correct. I already did that. I did that yesterday, so you saw that. So I'm not going to check those again. We're going to try and run it with a squirt bottle, and then hopefully it'll run. Well, the battery's hooked up, and I don't see any smoke, but whatever this guy is, he is very mad. I don't know if this is a buzzer or what, but I'm just going to try and disconnect it and see if it'll shut up. Okay, it's not doing anything. Stand by. Alright, we're going to ignore it and roll the key forward and see if something changes. Nope. Battery must have suddenly died in the last week. Great. Well, the ignition cylinder does nothing. It just screams, so we're out of time. We ain't got no parts. We don't have any patience left. She's going to the other house, so stay tuned. Alright, so we treated our neighbor a genuine DOT certified receipt enclosed Route 66 sign for transport of the Corvette 30 miles to the house, and the privilege to see the thing run eventually, and probably a couple other thousand favors. She's here, no problems, and yeah, brakes don't work. Had to engine brake it off the trailer, but she's here. Alright, it's the next day. I don't know if I was particularly clear with what I was trying to convey yesterday, because I was heat stroked, and we had a lot of things we had to do yesterday, like moving a lot of shit. And Corvette was, number one on that list, and when we hit a roadblock, it was shut it down, get her on the car trailer, we gotta go, because we made 2 trips that day, and I had the truck, down on the leaf springs, moving stuff at, max bed capacity. So, yeah, so still gonna work on the Corvette. It's just, we're gonna take our time now. I was hoping we could get it running, put it on the trailer, take it over here, but as soon as we ran into that electrical gremlin and could not get anything in the car to do anything, we just stopped right there. Looking up online, that appears to be the door buzzer, which is what my initial gut reaction was that's the door buzzer. So I took the keys out of ignition, I shut the door, and it kept going. And no matter what I did, I could not get it to shut off. So I assumed, well, it's not the door buzzer, it must be a relay having a fucking absolute shit fit. But it turns out it's just the door buzzer. And I think it may also be the low battery voltage buzzer. And I can't get anything in the car to turn on except for the brake lights and the hazard flashers. So I don't know if that's some sort of emergency circuit or something like that, but I feel like battery may just be dead. I don't know. I checked it like 3 weeks ago and it read 12.5, so I figured it was fine, but I mean, I'm getting nothing. Starter doesn't click. I can't get the indicator lights to do anything, can't get the windows to go up or down. So either there's like, a massive ground that is just off of the frame, or the battery's dead. I don't know. However, I'm not certain it's a dead battery, because we actually hooked it up in a parallel with another like Group 78 battery with jumper cables, and we still got nothing. So I don't know what it's about. I'm thinking it's like a bad ground or something, or something is fucky, or the ignition, like the whole steering column just doesn't work or something. There's something electrical going on. I can't get anything to do anything. So maybe we might get the trigger down on the starter, see if it kicks over. I don't know. But I got to do a lot of digging. I got to do a lot of research on the electrical. And as soon as we can get the electrical to work in the car, then I think it's just a matter of just squirting gas in it and seeing what happens. So, fun. Electrical issues on a 50-year-old car. Great. Alright, so I did some more noodling this morning, and the thought occurred to me, we have our base emergency circuit, but we don't have accessories or starter, both of which are tied to the ignition switch. And we're having an issue with the door buzzer that seems to always say that there's a key in the ignition because it doesn't shut off if you close the door. So I'm thinking there's like 27 years worth of verdigris on the ignition cylinder, and that's why we're not getting any power. Oh hey, there's a me. Hi me. So plan is to pull the steering wheel off and get at the ignition switch, or just spray some circuit cleaner, contact cleaner, whatever, canned air into the ignition cylinder and see if we can make something happen. But I'm thinking we're just not getting power through the ignition switch because, we don't have windows, the starter doesn't work, nothing seems to work. But the battery has voltage. Whenever I hook it up, the ground contact zaps, it arcs across. So we have a good ground. We have voltage to the battery. I just checked the battery like 3 weeks ago, and it was fully charged after sitting for 3 months. We hooked up another battery in parallel, and it made no difference. But the brake lights work, the emergency flashers work, the floor lights work, the horn works, and the door buzzer works. All of which are things that should be running on the car with the battery hooked up and no key in the ignition. So I'm thinking it's just the circuit with the ignition. So hopefully it's just as easy as pulling that out, going, oh look, it's green, and then sanding on it a little bit, sticking it back in, calling it a day. But yeah, we shall see. Alright, well, I'm in here with the voltmeter, and the battery's reading 1257, so absolutely not charge on the battery, that's for certain. Alright, so despite the fact that I don't own any vehicles with mass airflow sensors, I have a can of mass airflow sensor cleaner somehow. So I'm going to spray this into the ignition cylinder and see if anything happens. Let it sit overnight because I don't want this to, suddenly spark and set the car on fire. But, just give it a couple of squirts. I was going to use like contact cleaner or something like that, but I think this is pretty similar. I don't expect it to, destroy all the plastic, and I'm just going to give it just a couple of light squirts. And hopefully we shouldn't have any problems. Clutch is in all the way. Look at this. Yeah. Hold up, let me go find it. Alright, try a little two-stroke oil down the throat. Dad, she's dry as a bone. She needs every bit she can get. Alright, let's see if we got life. It's in. Alright, starter fluid. Nice. Give me a thumbs up.
One more time.
Okay, one more time, just for old time's sake.
Alright, it needs a gas bit into it now. Be ready.
Yep. Alright, let's shut this fucking buzzer up. Well, she lives. Forgive the lighting, we still don't have electricity in here yet, but we were not trying to start the car. I just wanted to check to see if the ammeter worked, because I was trying to see if there was power to that gauge cluster, and rolled the key forward, and neutral safety switch is disengaged, because she went forward and first onto the wheel chocks. That gave us both a shock, and so put down the clutch, spun just fine, gave her a squirt of gas, fired to life, gave her a couple squirts of ether, roared to life. So yeah, I guess just the trip here and me turning the ignition about 30 times knocked loose whatever the problem was. Don't know what the issue is with the door buzzer, but I was poring over a wiring diagram all this late this afternoon right before I left work, and I'm tracing through there, and now that I know that it's not an ignition issue, I don't have to do all of that stuff I just did, but I can look in there and figure out exactly which wire is the door buzzer and just snip that, and never have to worry about that again, because I'm pretty sure it's something in the ignition. And I looked up how to get that telescoping steering column apart, and it's a fucking nightmare. There's about 47 pieces just to get the horn to work, and I'm not pulling all that shit out of there just to pull one little piece out to make this stop. So I'm either going to snip a wire or pull something off the door buzzer, probably that, and that should be the end of it. And then I think it's just a matter of bleeding the brakes, dumping gas in, and we're golden. Alright, this is one of those, once in a blue moon times in this channel where I actually apply my brain to something instead of just caveman hitting things with wrenches. So we've got, we got the Chilton's manual, we got the Climber manual, we got the owner's manual. I pulled up a wiring diagram, I was highlighting, everything that I can confirm could work until I reached this sort of black hole in the fuse panel where I can't actually tell where the fuck these are connecting, because they didn't draw the fuses for some fucking reason. They drew every other line on it, but not the fuses. And then it just goes into this black hole up here on the steering column and on the ignition. You can't really quite make heads or tails of it. But thankfully I have this diagram here for the horn relay buzzer, and I'm hoping that if I just, disconnect this 4 right here, this whole thing will shut the fuck up. I don't know what the issue is, because even if this is, always connected, because it does it with the key out, the door switch would also have to be, not switching. The door switch would have to be, ungrounded and never make contact, in order for this to be buzzing continuously. This would have to be stuck in a position where it is never depressed, or that it can never send a signal that is depressed, whether background, broken switch, etc. and this guy up here has to be stuck on for it to be sending a continuous signal here to this door buzzer to make that horrid noise. So we're hoping if I pull this off, it'll shut up, or maybe I can pull the switch out, clean some contacts, and make it stop. We'll see. Alright, we have some baby step progress. Dad came out here today, got himself a bucket of rainwater, wiped off all the dirt so we got a little bit of shine back on her, and then he came in here with a 4/0 steel wool and put the shine on this here chrome. He didn't finish doing the side pipe yet, but he started. Did a little bit of the valve cover, did all the bumpers. And yeah, washed all the mung off the windows. And I made progress with the horn buzzer. So it's this guy right here, all the way right on this outside one. It is a kind of pink wire, and I disconnected that. And okay, I was going to show you that it buzzes when you hook that up, but I don't feel like doing that because it's hard to do and I'm hot and sweaty. But yeah, horn buzzer is disconnected. The battery is in. I checked, we have no amp draw. As you can see, courtesy lights come on and they shut off. So unhooking that door buzzer did not cause any problems. I thought it was going to disable the courtesy lights on the floor, but didn't. Might have disabled the dome light, but that bulb is out, or something else is messed up in that whole circuit because it doesn't come on either way. But yeah, door buzzer is off, battery is in, no amp draw. All we got to do now is brakes and prime the fuel system. Yep, I'm just going to keep procrastinating. Oh yeah, we put the antenna back on. Alright, we finally got the last of the crap moved out of the garage. Currently tightening shelves. But thankfully, we found Dad's pressure bleeder for the brake system, and you can't quite hear it. But anyway, it's still full of silicone brake fluid. At least it's got like a cupper. So we're gonna use that to bleed the brake system, and hopefully we should be able to just push everything on out of there, and we'll have to put the back end at the very least up on blocks. And if we're lucky, we might be able to turn the front wheels out to be able to get in there and just bleed them with the wheels still on. But we're going to have to pull them off the back because I ain't going to be able to fit up in there. And yeah, hopefully it should just be that easy. Knock on wood. Alright, so got her up on jack stands, the good Harbor Freight ones, the ones that collapse and kill you, but you don't also have the ability to get new ones. And I want you to look at something. Put cardboard under the thing. I think absolutely everything came out of the power steering reservoir. Good lord. It's only been in here a week. So, yeah, there's something major wrong with that thing. Alright, so I popped a wheel off real quick just to get an idea of what we're dealing with. As you can see, the rotors are pretty rusty, but not horrible, still smooth. Brakes are very rusty. I don't know if this is a factory speed hole or not. I'm not really certain what the fuck this is. I think this is a hole in the casting, which is kind of terrifying, but we'll ignore it. I'm guessing these are my bleeders right here, and I guess I gotta bleed both sides of the piston, I guess. Well, I guess it's 4 pistons, so both sides of the caliper. We'll see, but this came off without fighting, so that's great. Not rusted on. Yeah. Alright, so still haven't done the brakes. I'm waiting on Dad to work up the initiative. He wants to help, doesn't want me to do it by myself, but also simultaneously doesn't want to do it himself either. So anyway, I'm waiting for him to work up the nerve to start working on this thing. Then we're going to hit the brakes hot and heavy. But in the interim, I want to see if I can identify where this massive hemorrhaging power steering leak is coming from, so I can see if I need to order parts in the interim, because I don't want to run this thing without power steering and burn up that pump. I'm hoping it's just a cracked hose, which would be awesome, because then I could just buy a set of hoses for like 25 bucks and throw them in there, and that'd be the end of it. And I'm hoping it's not like an exploded seal on the pump or on the down there, control valve. So I'm gonna wriggle under there as best as I can in that like 7-inch gap and see if I can see anything. And if not, I've got an endoscope that I'll try and see if that does any better. Alright, well, I poked around and I feel pretty confident that it's the control valve. As you see, there's just two big old drips coming off the bottom of it, one right there off of that seam in the body, and one off of what looks like a bleeder. And yeah, the hoses are dry up there at that bend right there, you see that? No drips coming off of those. So it's not coming out of the power steering pump, it's not coming out of those hoses, at least not the top of the hoses, because it would be dripping off of the point down there. It's coming off of this control valve. These hoses here going to these pistons are dry, so it's not coming out of those. It's not coming out of those fittings down there. Hoses up there seem fairly dry, so I'm confident it's not coming out of there. I think this stuff is just migrating around. It's power steering fluid. It's a lot like ATF. It likes to wander. It can go up if it wants to. And yeah, so I have a feeling that all the seals are bad in that control valve and it's just hemorrhaging out, and no amount of stop leak added power steering fluid is going to fix it. So I think we're going to have to pick up one of them unless Dad's got one lying around, or if he's got a spare one, pick up a rebuild kit, rebuild it, throw that in there and see if that works. But I think that is our culprit right there. It's just this whole Borg cube. Fun. Alrighty, let's play around with this guy and see if we can get it to work. I think so long as this rubber's still good and it feels fine to me. It's only a little melted. Oh, we even have a wrench. And I believe this is a dipstick. And doesn't really dip too well. I'm not seeing really fluid on there, but there is fluid in it. I know that because it makes noises. I think what I'm gonna do is just use this old fluid first, because there's nothing in the line, so might as well put all the old fluid back in it and then pump all of that through to just force all the crap out before I waste a whole bunch of really good expensive brake fluid. So I think we're gonna do that. But I think how this whole system works is you fill this tank up with fluid, you pressurize it, you hook this up to your master cylinder, and then you connect this airline fitting with this quick disconnect, and then you go down and you just crack the bleeder and it just forces fluid through the line and out the other side and takes all the air and junk with it. So if it all works, if it, holds air, if the Schrader valve ain't seized, then it should be pretty easy. Alright, well, got the bike pump hooked up. It said to put 20 to 25 pounds in it, so give it a couple more pumps. Doesn't seem to be leaking. I had to do quite a bit of banging and cleaning to get everything to fit right. That looks about 25. Well, now it's 20. Yep, so bang on. And still just have all the old fluid in there. And I've got this hooked up on the master on what I believe is the rear. I think. I don't know how these fuckers work, but let me double check that because I want to do the rears first. If I'm going to have any of this old fluid somewhere, I'd rather it be in the rear brakes than the front brakes. So I'm going to double check that, flip this around if I have to, and then we're going to pull the rear tire off and try and bleed the brakes, I guess, or I guess we'll do rear passenger first since that's the longest line. But anywho, we're going to give it the old college try and hope for the best. Alright, wheels off. I freed the bleeder. It wasn't too horrible, just took a couple slaps. Got the Gatorade brake bottle hooked up. And I got this ready to go. So we'll just plug this in and hopefully it doesn't spray fluid everywhere. That sounds like it's doing something. I heard goo come out. What's our pressure at? It took about 5 psi. Heard something move. I guess all we can do now is hope that we can break this free and not spray fluid everywhere. May not be able to do this one-handed, but give me a sec, I'll try, and we'll come back and I'll give you a status update. Well, I get nothing coming out of this bleeder, so either the bleeder port is plugged, the line is plugged, or I've got it hooked up to the wrong side of the master cylinder. I'm not really certain. I'm pretty sure the back one is the back one. That's the way the plumbing seems to be. This goes to the rear, and this goes to the rear of the master. So that would be my assumption, is that the line coming out of the master that's closest to the line going to the rear on the partitioning valve is probably the one going to the rear, but we're not getting anything. So I think I'm going to depressurize this and then pull the bleeder and see whether or not the bleeder screw itself is plugged. And we'll know if it just like suddenly belches stuff out at me. But I don't want this to leak any more fluid over here. Or we may be out of fluid, I don't know. No, we still got a little bit. Alright, so we're giving up on that fucking thing. I filled it full of new brake fluid, hooked it up to the other side of the master cylinder, and still nothing. All it did was just belch brake fluid out from underneath that sealing plate. And yeah, I fucking gave up. I just bled all the brake fluid out of it back into the container. And we're going to use this Sucky Boy 9000 that I bought probably last year and never actually used it for what I needed it for. I don't know what the hell I bought it for, but anyway, we're just going to hook that up and use it. And if that fails, then I'll get Dad out here to just do it the old-fashioned way. But we're going to get this done one way or the other. Alright, this guy doesn't seem to be doing anything either, so I'm assuming there's some kind of valvage going on that is preventing flow because the master cylinder's not going down. And I've put pressure on it, and I've pulled pressure on it. So I guess all I can do now is just pump the pedal and see if something happens. Well, it's shooting bubbles. Prefer if it didn't get brake fluid everywhere, but hoping just sort of, yeah, I'm gonna need to put some on there. It's just blowing shit everywhere again. I'll fuck with it and see if something happens. Alright, well, despite my best efforts there, that did nothing either, so I guess we're gonna try and do this the old-fashioned way and hope it works, and if not, I guess we're shit out of luck. I don't know what the hell. Yeah, it ain't blowing, it ain't sucking. I guess we're just gonna have to bleed it and just get shit everywhere because I don't have another way to do it. Oh, Lord, there's always got to be something. Alright, well, we've covered the Corvette in my sweat again, but I think I actually have the master cylinder bled. For whatever reason, I don't have a brake bleeder fitting that will fit the rear of this, but that one will fit the front, but it's not the right one, but it works, so I'll run with it. Not certain why, but anyway. Hooked up that fitting, ow, kicked the damn muffler. Hooked up that fitting to the front cylinder, bled that. That fought me. There's a lot of really nasty, rusty, immiscible, watery looking garbage in there, so we got our work cut out for us, but I have brake pedal. It's firm. It won't let me hit it to the floorboard quite. It's about as good as the truck, so I'm building pressure. So the master cylinder's fine. Appears to be bled. So not certain, if the partitioning valve is messed up or something, but we'll call it good enough. And we'll throw that back on. And well, I guess we'll leave that off. Take the wheel off, crack the bleeder, and see if either of these goes down. Hopefully, maybe. Man can dream. Okay, well, I still can't get anything to come out of the bleeder, and I can't get any of these brake lines to come off. I can't even get them to budge. And if I go any further, I'm going to snap some off. So I think this thing is going to need an entire brake system overhaul. Which is going to get expensive very fast, and it's going to be very fun to do, considering how little room. I don't even have like a 1/12 of a turn on any of these fucking wrenches, so I'm going to have to probably disassemble the whole back half to change the fucking brake lines or some shit. But anyway, we're going to put the wheel back on. I also just noticed that there are cracks in the sidewall. the whole way around, so we're definitely going to have to get new tires, which is a shame because these have plenty of tread and they're actually still pretty rubbery. But anywho, we're going to huck this back on, and I'm going to try the other rear brake caliper to see if that makes a difference. Well, the thought just finally dawned on me that these are 4-piston brakes, and it looks like only one side has a brake line hooked up, so I decided to hook this up to the reverse bleeder, and as you can see, still nothing happening. Pumping the brakes does nothing. We are building pressure, so I know the master cylinder works. But yeah, I think maybe only the front brakes are working. Yeah, I don't know. I think these rubber lines have collapsed, or there's some kind of massive clog. It may just be this caliper. I'm going to go try the other one, but we're still getting nothing out of these. Pumping the brakes and, you know, pulling 10 pounds of vacuum on it ain't doing anything. So I'm gonna try the other wheel and hope and pray. We have fucking success. We've got disgusting goo coming out. So it was just a problem with probably that caliper or that rubber line or something, but we're sucking juice out of there now, boys. So that's a good sign. And yep, we're rear cylinder, so I'll keep that topped up. And we may just have brakes. Alright, I put just a whiff of Teflon tape on the upper half of the threads on the bleeder, just so that it wasn't sucking air in here around the threads. And as you can see, I'm just slowly bleeding it, giving it just a little bit of the suck, so that it'll still pull fluid and hopefully pull most of the bubbles out. I'm not going to get all of them out because, you know, I have one whole half of the fucking rear that's not bled, but, you know, look at the big chunks. I have no idea what the fuck is going on with this line. As you can see right here, it's pulling air through the system. Air is being pulled because there's a pocket of brake fluid down there, and it's pulling air through it at a pretty good clip, and there is no hissing coming from this caliper. However, we come up here, there's bubbles coming up out of the master, and that went down about 1/4 of an inch since I started doing this. But there's no fluid coming out of this. And there's no fluid on the ground. This one bled just fine. So that means there's something between right here and that caliper that has a massive restriction. No, there's no additional brake fluid on the ground that wasn't there before. Nothing fresh, as far as I can tell. Well, and yeah, there was no issue over here. This side bled just fine. So my only thought is maybe one of those little mounts holding it to the frame is rusted and it's constricting the line, or potentially that soft line over there is bad. I don't know. The line looks fine. There's 3 of those little clamps holding it on. So unless one of those is rusted or that soft line is plugged, I don't know, but it appears to be pulling some amount of air. Because that had gone down. Not by a lot. And it's still pulling air from somewhere in here, but it's not pulling fluid out. So yeah, I don't fucking know. I guess I'm gonna go press on the brakes and see if something happens, see if something breaks free. I don't know, I already banged all on this caliper and tapped the line and everything, and, you know, jiggled this and whatnot, and that doesn't seem to be doing anything. That's actually, honestly, a lot more pliable than I thought it would be. I do not know. It's a mystery. Alright, and also to test, I have closed the bleeder, and I have this as sucky as it'll go, and that's as much of, you know, a leak as I have to atmosphere around this hose down here. You know, so it ain't that. So it's pulling air through the line. It's just, why is nothing coming out? Alright, well this has been going for about 5-10 minutes now, and it hasn't stopped. No more fluid has come out. So I'm just going to give up. Anyway, I'm going to see if I can do the fronts without, putting it up on jacks. And I also just noticed something. Definitely going to need new tires. Don't know what the fuck is going on here, but we just have some complete belt separation going on right on there. So we got us a nice set of Maypops now. Jesus Christ. That had to have just happened. Oh, yeah, that's like coming apart. That's interesting. So I'm going to stick my face right about here and go up in there and yank and jiggle on this fair bit. And yeah, see if I can get these two bleeders free and see if I can get the sucky boy on it without having to put the front up on jacks. Well, I pulled the front bleeders and Tefloned them, and this thing is still just a sucking away, but ain't nothing coming out. So, don't know what the hell's going on back here, but I have a feeling something is fucked. Ask me how I know. Anywho, we're gonna go try the fronts, and let me show you why I know. Because I don't know if y'all are gonna be able to make this out. We got some wetness on the tire, and if you look up here, this caliper is the only one that's wet. So I think this is the original cause of all of the brake fluid going away. Well, I guess that wouldn't explain the rear. I think it all just evaporated. This stuff seems to evaporate. But yeah, it looks like I think one of these pistons is corroded and failed or something. But anywho, we're going to try and bleed everything anyway and hope for the best. Alright, so both of the fronts did the exact same thing as the rear passenger. So that's great, but we have one brake. That's enough though. One brake and 3 tires with tread. That's good enough for a test drive, I guess. Well, I showed Dad the blown up tire, and he didn't waste any time at all. We got new tires. They're even Coopacabras. So Coopers were, like $130 a pop, so price was right. We just went with them. Couldn't get the Eagles anymore. It was between Cooper and somebody else. Oh, and BF Goodrich, and it was like $50 more a tire to get BF Goodrich, so I ain't paying the Goodrich tax. We got Coopacabras, so we're gonna huck those on this thing, and by that I mean I'm gonna take it to a shop because I'm not going to fuck up those rims. Alright, so it's been a hot minute, mostly because I've been working on that thing instead, but I bit the bullet and just bought a new steering control valve. So we went with layers because they were $100 cheaper than anybody else for a reman. They've got mixed reviews, but fuck it, whatever. We'll take a gamble. I think it only ends up being like, I don't know, 120 to me at the end of the day after the core charge. So we'll see how it do. But it was looking like it was, gonna cost like upwards of like $70-80 to rebuild that thing, and it was couldn't really find too great of information on how to do it, but it seems pretty simple. But I figured for the money, might as well just get a rebuild, and then if it leaks, send it back and get another. Hopefully, maybe, I don't know, but that's probably going to be the next thing we tackle, and then we're going to deal with these bear of a brake calipers, and hopefully maybe somehow massage them and get them to move. Or buy new calipers. One of the two. But I gotta work on this thing today. Well, I think I know part of why our door buzzer didn't work. Because we had some of that going on. So I think that was just perpetually saying it was on. Or maybe not. I don't know. But I have a feeling that was the culprit. Alright, well, I have bad news. It's been a couple of months, and I have been off and on playing with this thing, and I cannot get a single brake fitting, brake hose, anything to budge. I've rounded off this guy over here. That one right there is now totally rounded off for the most part. I cannot get that to move. I cannot get that side to move. I bought soft lines. I can't get the back side of that one to move. I can't get the other side over there. I can't get the fitting up there. I've without having to disassemble the entire suspension, or taking out this brake caliper bolt, I can't get anything on that one. From what I can see, though, the calipers are not seized. I was actually able to just kind of pretty easily press down in on this one and get some play. And I haven't even tried this one yet. Yeah. I don't believe the calipers themselves are seized. My dad said he has stainless steel pistons. So, but I think I'm going to have to redo the entire brake system. I mean, I was going to have to anyway, but with the way everything is, I think we're going to have to do a new lines to the rear, because I'm confident I'm not going to be able to get these apart, so I'm going to have to do new fittings, got new soft hoses. I'm going to have to get a new short line. I don't know if I'm going to be able to, I can hope I can get it back out of the caliper. I'm hoping if I can cut that right there, I can take the caliper off and out, and then take this sucker out down in here, I hope. But they are just fucked, and I think if I can't get this line out over here off of this block, and this line out of that block, I'm going to have to get a new block. And if I'm not lucky enough to get the fitting off the back of that, I'm going to have to get a new rear brake line fitting. And if I'm going that far, I'm going to probably need to get another distribution block and another master and new lines for the front, and then new front calipers. I have to do new front rotors and new pads, and it's, oh man, it's going to be a process, and there's going to be a lot of work involved. So I think I'm going to end this video right here, and then, you know, we'll pick back up on this in part 4. But that's it for part 3. So if you want to see the continuation of this saga and me continue to beat on this Stingray, which I am learning that not all cars from the 60s are fun to work on in all respects, stick around. You know, go down there, like the video, comment, and make sure to smash that subscribe button if you want to see the rest of the series. And until next time, I'm out.